Hello, welcome to Pluralsight Spotlight. I'm Alice Meredith, your guest host for this afternoon. I have the pleasure to interview Dale Meredith, an amazing Pluralsight author, and I mean amazing. So Dale, I know quite a bit about your history and your love for technology, where it all started, your resume, but today we're going to kind of let our listeners and a lot of your Pluralsight learners, right, learn a little bit about who you are, a little bit deeper, right? Go a little bit more personal. So your love for technology, I can vouch, is just embedded in your DNA. During your high school years, the only chance you had to engage with technology was to join the computer club, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't because I was necessarily interested in computers. It was more, I love playing games. So that's why my picture is in the yearbook in the computer club, strictly for the games.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I just
no.
learned that. That was something brand new. So your career didn't start out in IT. That's not kind of where it began. The first 10 years, you were probably heavily embedded in the movie industry. Your love for movies, you just really felt that is where your career was going to go. But your pull towards technology just kept pulling you away, right? I think it was after about 10 years into the career world. Is that when you went back to school and started getting the certifications to kind of skill up so you could really embrace a career in technology?
Yeah, I again, love of movies. My father worked for the movie theater industry as well, but I was using computers before computers were even around the movie theaters. I managed a theater and was doing inventory on the computer, and I would get done so much faster than all the other managers, and they were all mad because I used technology to my advantage. And just the issue, or not the issue, but the concept of using computers really interested me. So I found myself in a point in my career where I was actually working for a computer wholesaler where we sold PCs and parts and stuff to companies. And I had all these people coming to me asking me different questions about, how would you do this, Dale? How would you do that? And I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll get my certification to or make a transition over to that world so that I can get paid maybe a little bit better. And so, yeah, I went to school. Actually, I checked out, it's kind of interesting, checked out the universities. And the universities at the time were still teaching on 286s. And for those of you who don't know, those were really old PCs. And at the time, we were up to 486. So universities were so far behind when it came to technology that I decided to do it through a tech school instead.
I remember there was a time when your second signature on the email line, right? I used to joke that you had every letter of the alphabet. You had so many certifications. You were just kind of like addicted to schooling. Once you got embedded into that training center, you just were like going and flipping through those. And what was that drive to just learn more, learn more? Where did that come from?
Again, I think technology wasn't as vast as it is today. It was a little bit more focused because technology, I mean, again, when I started, not everybody had a computer when it came to their office or their work. It was kind of a luxury item to have. So I was trying to absorb as much as I could when it came to certifications. And as far as teaching was concerned, I actually went to a training center and I brought 4 of my friends with me, and they gave me a free course as a bonus. And the course that I was going to take, or that they offered to me, was one that was called a Microsoft Certified Trainer. And what enticed me to that wasn't that I planned on training. It was that it was a course that didn't have an exam associated to it. Well, they lied to me. It does have an exam, but it's not the paper exam. And the other issue too is this was going to be another couple of letters I could add to the end of my resume as well. The exam that they have is at the end of the course. They actually videotape you doing a presentation on technology. Well, excuse me, it had to be anything but technology. It was kind of an interesting course because I couldn't teach anything about computers. Instead, I taught on how to install a sprinkler system. And they submit the videos to Microsoft. The results came back, and actually the training center offered me a job. And in one day, I doubled my salary. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a world where, this kind of goes back to that movie thing. I always wanted to be an actor, I guess. But now I got paid to stand up in front of people, and they had to listen to me because they were paying for it. And it just gave me an opportunity to perform, as well as there's a concept that I refer to all the time. Is one of my motivators is I call it the light bulb effect. When I was learning, you know that I struggled with some of the concepts initially, but when I was learning, all of a sudden I would get it, the light bulb would go off. Well, being up in front of a classroom and presenting a concept initially and seeing everyone have this look of, on their face, and then as I taught it, seeing light bulbs go off all around the room, it's actually an adrenaline rush for me. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I transitioned over to the training environment.
I remember that career transition for you, right? As your life partner, I've seen all different steps of your career, but just the passion and your love for what you were doing, it was like it just changed. I mean, I think all of us have that, right? When we find that niche, that exact spot where we are not only personally fulfilled by what we're doing to make a living, but it just excites us. I mean, it was just a whole different person. You would wake up the next day and just be excited to go to work and jump into work. I think you're the one who coined the word edutainment, right?
Yeah.
You just love to get in front of a microphone and make people laugh, and your comedy and your wit. I tell our kids and our grandkids even, I mean, the magic sauce, the secret sauce, right, that you have with technology is a lot of people who know about tech and who have all of these skills, they're kind of boring to listen to. But your ability to bring a concept alive, to make it funny, I think it embeds it in their memory, right? That they can retain the information because they remember the experience of learning from Dale Meredith.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned later on, I didn't realize I was doing it when I was teaching, but something that you touch on your courses is that when we tie an emotion to something, we actually retain that information. And my emotion that I'd love to get across is humor. So if I can make you laugh while I'm teaching you, trust me, when it comes to taking an exam or when you're under pressure, if you're able to recall that information, you chuckle because you remembered something that I said or the way I presented it, it just makes that experience much better for the viewer as far as their learning is concerned. They'll retain the information a lot more than just trying to memorize something over and over and over.
It was fun for me. I was putting together a social media post, right, to kind of help elevate both your courses and my courses. And I went back through all of Pluralsight's learners' reviews and comments, and I was pulling out all the comments, and 90% of them were, "He made me laugh. I love Dale Meredith. He brings the concepts alive, and I have fun listening to him." I remember one comment, one of my most favorite comments I've read from one of your learners. It had to do with all the dad jokes.
Oh.
And he said he would just be dying laughing, but his wife would be in the background saying like, "Oh, he's so lame." And he said, "But I keep coming back to Dale Meredith because he keeps it entertaining, he keeps it light, and the concepts are really driven home and embedded in my knowledge base."
And I apologize to those of you out there that have had to put up with the dad jokes because you live or die by those. Because I do get the comments every now and then.
That's true.
There's too many dad jokes, just get to the point. But part of my personality, again, in fact, what's happening normally is I'm recalling information by making myself laugh inside. Just like we memorize something. So when I'm presenting, it's like, oh, if I do that joke, it'll spring up that information again, and then I can keep going. So I appreciate everybody bearing with me on those dad jokes.
So Dale, let's transition. So you talked about the training centers and getting your MCT, and that put you, I think, maybe 8 to 10 years, right, in the Microsoft training environment.
Right.
Now, what transitioned you? How did your passion come alive, I guess I should say, to move into cybersecurity?
Well, that actually is going to be kind of I'm not going to say a long story. I'll try to keep it short, but we're going to do a flashback. So everybody come with me here. Back, flashback. What happened was, unfortunately, 9/11 took place. And one of the things that we saw in the industry was that the first budgets that got cut was training. And a lot of training centers went under at that time. And so the training center I was working at actually went under. And I found myself unemployed but with all this knowledge. And so I decided to, in the area that we lived in at the time, there was no high-speed internet. Well, there was AOL and 56K modems that screeched at us. I decided to instead do wireless networking and helped start a company or funded a company that we created high-speed internet out in our area, and became the CTO for that company. And what's interesting is that a good friend of mine, his name is Mark Burnett. He's actually a white hat. I didn't know it at the time, but he's a white hat for Microsoft. So he's a good guy, good hacker. We made a deal with each other. I got him free internet, and he helped me secure the network. And so I learned quite a bit under his tutelage, if you will. And it was amazing because I thought at the time, I'm little Syracuse, Utah, who's going to pay attention to me and my ISP, or all my customers are customers. And what I really quickly found out was we're just numbers when it comes to the internet. And we immediately started getting attacked. So I had a lot of schooling from him. Well, we ended up selling that company off, and I found myself working for another training company. They actually picked up a contract with DOD and Homeland Security and teaching nationwide all their IT guys. And part of that agreement was we were going to go through and do cybersecurity. And so I had an opportunity to set an ethical hacking class. Wow, my mind was blown. In fact, the analogy I always give, and I give it to my viewers too, is that on day one, I was like, yeah, hacking, here we go. And day two, I was like, that's interesting. And day three, I'm like, whoa. And day four, I'm like, I don't want to play anymore. But because it scares you initially, or at least it did for me. It brought everything full circle for me. But it excited me because the platform itself, or hacking itself, is continually changing. You know me, I can't stand static. I love change. I mean, if I had it my way, I would change around our living room every week if I could, just to get that environment there, or because that creativeness, I guess, in myself. But when it comes to technology, I love the fact that it's always changing. There's always something to learn. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to feeding that desire that I have of learning all the time.
Yeah, I don't think it's a desire. It is an addiction to learning. But it's really cool, though, because in the sphere that you live in, right, and you work in, you are constantly updating your courses.
Right.
I mean, it blows my mind as a peer author, right, and also a partner in life with you, how much time you invest in updating to ensure to ensure content relevancy in your courses.
Right.
Now, I'm in the leadership and change management and culture sphere, right? And I don't think I've updated a course yet, other than trying to, make the video look a little bit better, or the content show itself. But the amount of work you and all the other Pluralsight authors here on this major technology platform has to do and invests in, to really ensuring updates to make sure that the content is just at the cutting edge. And your addiction to learning, though, I think supports that, right? And you are always just wanting to learn more. What's new?
A part of that is not only the learning, but part of it is also the going back to that fear.
Right.
I'm afraid that my learners aren't on the cutting edge, that they're letting things get through. And so that's one of my major pushes for trying to make sure that the content is updated.
That's a good segue into Dale Dumbs It Down.
Oh.
So why don't you talk a little bit about Dale Dumbs It Down? If you are not connected with Dale, all of his social media platforms, I think I don't know, LinkedIn, I think is still
Dale Meredith,
I think LinkedIn is still under Dale Meredith, but the other ones are Dale Dumbs It Down, and his website is Dale Dumbs It Down. So tell a little bit about the history and the why behind Dale Dumbs It Down, and why you launched that, and why you invest so much of your personal time into this endeavor.
So it's kind of a brainchild of both you helping me through the process of trying to fill that need of wanting to share information. When I learn about something when it comes to cybersecurity, or even when I went through initially the ethical hacking series, my first fear was for individuals, not necessarily companies. I get it. Companies, Yeah, we got to keep things protected. But, you know, the mom and pa, the college student,
our 6 teenagers.
our 6
trying
teenagers.
to navigate
well, at the time,
the ins and outs of
they're not
the
teenagers
internet.
anymore.
I know.
But
We keep
yeah,
aging ourselves.
I
How
know,
many
I know.
comments have we said about, you know, Apple IIc,
I know.
dial-up modems? Ugh.
Well, you know, turning 30 this year.
60. Yesterday was his 60th birthday.
uh,
Happy birthday.
But part of that fear is what I'm trying to communicate out to, not the fear, trying to communicate the technology out to individuals. So yeah, it's Dale dumbs it, IT. I'm dumbing it down.
Ooh,
So
real fast. Who came up with that clever name?
I have to give kudos to you because you came up with that awesome name.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I'm too dumb to come up with it. So.
Oh my God, you're such a dork.
Here's the issue, is that we have technology that surrounds us, more so ever today than we did 10 years ago. I probably would have never started Dale Dumbs It Down 10 years ago. But because it surrounds us in everything that we do, I mean, we've got water bottles that have internet connection to track our water consumption and stuff. Individuals are buying this technology without really understanding what potential risks we're putting ourselves at. Yeah. And it's just scary for me and here's the other issue too, is again, going back to that concept of when I was working for the wholesaler and people coming to me asking me questions, how would you do this? It still happens today. I have nieces and nephews who come to me and they say, hey, Uncle Dale, how do I do this? Or, you know, somebody got my password. What do I need to do to fix that? That's where my platform comes into play. And that's our main focus, is making sure that people understand what the technology is and how to protect themselves. And there is a side passion there, and that is protecting kids as well.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about your concern for the individual user, right? For the average Joe Smo. So that would be me, right? And our kids and our grandkids, and I'm just the average user who we're so naive, right, about technology and what we put out there. What would you say that causes that naivety?
You know, I'm going to reverse that, not reverse it, but I'm going to bring your domain into this because I think it's based off generations. So let's talk about real quick, because at different generations, we have different ways that people are affected by technology. So we start off with, you know, our parents. What do we call those? Traditionalists.
Yep, traditionalists, yeah.
And traditionalists, when we talked with somebody, or when we said, hey, I'm going to do this, and we shook hands, our word was our bond. And so
you're not a traditionalist.
No.
You're our parents, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying, third person there.
Don't age us
that much. Okay. But their word was their bond. If they said something, that was the way it was. And that's why today we have so many senior citizens, that's the traditionalist age, that are falling for scams because somebody calls up and says, we're from the IRS. They've got to be, why would they ever lie to me? They've got to be from the IRS. And they want me to pay them in Amazon gift cards. I mean, that's the crazy part. But the traditionalists, that's the issue for them. And that's what scares me about them, is that they don't, there's too much trust.
Too much trust. That's interesting. So what about our generation, right? Say boomers and Xers.
So boomers and Xers, a little bit different. We saw the technology come around, but we don't quite use it to its fullest. So, you know, we have the smartphones. I don't know how many times I hear people our age, they're like, look at this. I just discovered how to do this. A great example. I just discovered the other day on my Galaxy. Did you know that you can do this? I'm going to teach you here something. If you go into the photos, if you long press on a person, it'll automatically get rid of the background. So you just have the person or the object. Yeah. So a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of younger generations know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that. So we're not using it to its full potential. So part of it is the fact that with technology, we're kind of naive in it because we don't understand everything that's taking place. And because of that, we end up giving up too much information. Okay. Not as much as a later generation, I'm sure we're going to talk about here in just a second, but we have this tendency of doing that. You know, we went from the transition of watching, oh man, this is going to really age me, but you know, I grew up in the old days where a rotary phone where we had to dial. to make a phone call. We saw then the touch tone phone or the push button phone come out. Sidebar for hacking. I learned how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb with the touch tones. I couldn't do that on the rotary phone. But
so you hacked a touch
so
tone.
well, it's not really hacking. It was just something we used to do. But
Okay.
that same concept is we saw the technology come around, but we never used it to its full advantage. And the same thing, like I said, still applies to us today.
Let's jump back to the work that you do here on the Pluralsight platform.
Okay.
So a lot of your courses, I think most all of them fall under a certification category, right? CEH, CYSA, and I think you have done quite a bit in the pen testing world as well.
Right.
So IT certifications, what do you think their value is? What's their purpose? And who would you recommend them for?
So different categories. Let's start off first of all talking about why is certification important? One, it leads to or can lead to higher positions within your organization. It shows that you have or that you can do specific tasks because there's objectives associated to those. And that's actually one of the things I love about teaching on the Pluralsight platform is that you can quickly go, you know what, I'm solid here, but these are my weak points. And so I can drill into those and deep dive if I need to. I was going to say one of the other advantages is that when it comes to certification, there are a lot of jobs, especially within government, Department of Defense. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they actually have a requirement that anybody that touches a computer has to have a cybersecurity certification. And so you were mentioning the gentleman that approached me the other day. He was doing a career change. And so he had to go get that. And of course, or he's trying to get his certification so that he can work on the systems as well. As far as who it's for, well, that depends on the course itself. I look at Certified Ethical Hacking or CEH as kind of the foundational. It's where everything is based off of. We learn all kinds of things about how the hackers think. As a matter of fact, that's actually the analogy that I use is I try to turn the viewer into a criminal profiler because you have to think like the hacker in order to protect against the hacker. Once you've done that, then you technically, at least in my perspective, you've got a couple different avenues, but as far as my courses are concerned, you have two avenues to go. You can either go down the analyst road, where you're analyzing breaches and how they took place, and that's the CYSA series or course, or you can do the thing that I love to do, which is penetration testing. That's where you get to pretend to be a hacker. You get to do things that hackers do. It's an adrenaline rush for me because I get to be a criminal without being a criminal. So I get to physically try to get into a building after hours. And there's a chance I can get caught. And there's a chance that somebody catches me, doesn't know that I'm supposed to be doing this particular test. And so that's where the adrenaline comes in. And so that's kind of my passion is down that particular avenue. Not that the analyst has, it has its advantages as well, but those are kind of the two ways that I would go. And as far as who is it for, anybody that's involved in infrastructure, whether it's just a standard IT help desk person, they need to be aware so that when the individual calls them up, a user calls them up and says, I've got this email and I'm kind of worried about it, they know what to look for, what to do and how to direct them.
I know you're heavily engaged in this webinar series for a popular university, right? And it's all about teaching generative AI and its impact and their IT team, right? What to stay on top of. So I know you're very passionate about it. Your addiction to learning has taken you down this AI path, and that's about all that you're teaching and talking about these days. But in relation to IT analysts and the team who secures company networks, what level of awareness or concern should they have about generative AI?
So that's the scary one. It makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck when I think about it. Not that generative AI or Gen AI is anything bad. I love the aspect. I think it's an interesting technology. It's very pivotal. We will all remember these years.
This year.
Yeah,
this year. I mean,
particularly,
last
past
year
6
did
months.
this year, right?
Right. But I always, whenever I see something, a new gadget that's connected to the internet, I'm always like, yeah, that's cool, but what's it going to do from the evil perspective, right? And this is what scares me about generative AI, is because we have things like we're using generative AI to protect our networks. That's the big thing. But don't think for a second that hackers aren't using it to attack us as well. They are able to fake your biometrics, facial scans. They're able to use AI to go out and scour your social media and then come up with, what are the best passwords for Dale? Batman related, right? And so password guessing is going to get even worse as far as that is concerned. There is a lot that's coming at us. We haven't even seen. This is like the first 50 feet of the ocean before we see what it's going to do to us. I think we need to be extremely on edge. Not that it's going to be Skynet, and attack us, but know that attackers are looking at this. I call them attackers, hackers. I use the term interchangeably, but what are they going to be utilizing it for? They're using it for social engineering. We've seen cases of parents getting AI-generated phone calls from their child saying, I've been kidnapped. We're seeing bank fraud taking place with AI. The latest with MGM, it's going on right now in their hotels, being hacked. And last I checked, they've been down for over a week now. And they got the Grand Prix coming up, which is in Vegas, which is going to be interesting how they pivot from this. But attackers got in. They got in less than 10 minutes through social engineering. Hasn't been disclosed, but I almost want to guarantee that it was done through AI, that an AI voice faking a CEO of MGM, or we'll probably never know for sure because no one's going to, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? But I guarantee that AI was somehow involved to allow them to get in that quickly and take over elevators, water heaters, slot machines. I mean, they've shut down everything. And that's a scary situation to be in as far as the company is concerned. So protecting ourselves, not only understanding what AI can do for us, but understanding how to protect ourselves against it is primary as far as the IT or the security professional is concerned right now.
Let's wrap this up with one last question. So if you had a message to share with cybersecurity professionals everywhere, what would be that message, or what do you want them to know?
I think we need to understand that the hackers are more creative than you. They will take whatever we've learned and they're going to use it. They are so much more creative and much more ahead of everything because they have a different motivation. Their motivation right now is financial, right? Typically is what we see, is because either they're going to do a ransomware or they're going to sell the information. So what's the motivation of the internal help desk person or the security professional? I really think that we need to focus in on hiring third-party pen testers out there, getting an outside look. Too many times companies rely on people that are within the organization and they only know what they know. They can't see everything from a bigger picture that maybe a professional pen tester can see. I think the key thing though, besides the aspect of attacker being more creative all the time, is that the attacker will always have a bigger drive to win than the security professional's drive to defend.
Awesome. I love that. I hear you say that quite often when you're engaging in your webinars and talking to different IT teams. So I heard you mention Batman. So you're the one who introduced the topic. So let's wrap this up and talk real quickly about Batman. And here we have a 60-year-old man who still is as big of a fan of Batman as a superhero as a 10-year-old kid. When I see you at security conferences and you're talking on stage, all of your slides, right, have that Batman theme. Your learners, your Pluralsight learners, the comments are all about Batman, Batman, Batman. You bring in and weave Batman into every training that you do. So help our listeners understand why Batman.
So I get that question asked all the time. Why Batman? Why Batman? Well, he's a normal guy. Okay, he's got a lot of money. But his superpower is really his superpower is his head, is his brain, is his knowledge. He thinks about every aspect to the point that he actually has contingency plans in case Superman goes bad or Wonder Woman goes bad. So he is always thinking about the different possibilities. He's got a lot of cool tools, and that's one thing I love about this industry. And what I love about my utility belt is I'm always building it up with new tools and new features. So I relate a lot with, I guess, a fictional character. That's kind of weird to say. But yeah, that's why, is because anybody can be Batman. You don't have to have a superpower. You just have to have a desire.
Thanks again for tuning in. And don't forget to check out the show notes where we will list many of Dale's most popular courses.